Ever watch a movie flop so hard that even the lead actress had to sit in an empty theater just to process it? Because that's exactly what happened to Rachel Zegler, who didn't just star in Disney's Snow White. She starred in one of the most brutal Hollywood flops ever seen. Since the movie's second weekend numbers and reviews, this wasn't just a box office flop, it was a career-defining catastrophe. From political runs to co-star beef, Rachel didn't just burn bridges, she lit the whole kingdom on fire. And now, after months of dragging this film through every controversy possible, Rachel Zegler completely lost it after Snow White bombed. You know the flop is real when the lead actor shows up to her own movie and the room is so quiet you can hear popcorn kernels crying. Rachel brought her friends, likely for moral support, to what looked more like a private screening than a major Disney release. Fans probably defended her, saying that they just rented out the whole theater, but I don't know, everyone seems to be posting videos of empty theaters even when I was forced to go watch. There was no one there, and Rachel also filmed themselves buying the tickets. So yeah, this is just embarrassing, and Instagram caught it at all, turning what should have been a celebration into meme material. These videos just gave off the "hey guys, come watch me tank my career in 4K" vibes. Like, you know, when someone tries to embrace the controversy, acting like they're in on the joke to make it seem cool or de-escalate the backlash. Yeah, that didn't work here. It just made the whole thing even more laughable. So now, after the movie's second weekend, let's talk numbers, because they are painful. Snow White reportedly cost Disney $370 million to make and market, so we are nearing $400 million spent trying to rebrand a beloved classic into a modern morality tale, and in return for that $370 million, what did they get? A $43 million opening and audience walkouts. Even Dumbo outperformed this, and that elephant literally flew away from theaters. So in its second weekend, Snow White experienced the steep 66% decline in ticket sales, bringing in $14.2 million and falling to second place behind the action film A Hardworking Man, which by the way had 000 fewer theaters and no massive name like Disney behind it. So just let that sink in. A simple action movie outperformed Disney's most iconic fairy tale, which had been out for 2 weeks, compared to A Working Man that's only been out for 1. Even The Chosen Last Supper, with half the amount of theaters, almost surpassed Snow White. But if we look at the income per the average, both movies outperformed Snow White. And then with Minecraft coming out next week, yeah, no, Snow White's done. So as of March 30th, 2025, the film's cumulative gross stood at approximately $66.9 million in the United States and Canada, with an additional $75.8 million from other territories, totaling around $142.8 million worldwide. So it's official, Snow White bombed, because never mind-breaking, even analysts believe the movie will make a loss exceeding $100 million. But to add insult to injury, the movie also tanked its IMDb score, going down to as low as $1.50 out of 10 at a point. That's not just bad, that's should we delete this movie from history bad. And this is the same studio that made The Lion King remake a $1 billion hit. Yet for Snow White, entire theaters were empty. People were posting seat maps with more blue than an ocean, which is kind of ironic, because before the premiere, Rachel proudly declared people would wait in line to see her movies, and well, that aged brilliantly. That at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see. Yeah, they waited in line, all right, to buy tickets to anything but Snow White. So when that video resurfaced, it was like The universe dunking on her in 4K. Because the problem is Rachel Zegler didn't just act in the movie, she talked it into the ground. She called the original 1937 version weird, dragged the prince for being a creep, and said the story needed fixing. Reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated. There's a big focus on her love story, with a guy who literally stalks her. That alone ticked off Disney diehards who grew up on the OG fairy tale. Then she doubled down by telling entire political groups not to watch the film. Bro, you're the lead in a family-friendly movie, not a political campaign. Never mind the fact she told like half the country not to watch the movie. I don't need your business, thanks, but I guess they listened, so there's nothing wrong with having political opinions, but she could have kept them separate from an iconic family-friendly movie. And obviously by now we all know about the tension between Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, resulting in Disney having to beef up security after receiving so many hate and death threats following Rachel's post. But things got even worse when Rachel made a weird comment about Gal being a pageant queen and then skipped her entirely in a sentimental Instagram post thanking the cast. Coincidence or shade, you decide, because after all of this I wouldn't be surprised if Gal Gadot has a slight smile on her face after all the backlash Rachel Zegler's facing, because by this point Disney's PR squad was putting out fires like it was a full-time job. They reportedly bought in a social media guru to manage Rachel's posts, but that was like trying to babysit a tornado. She had already gone viral for bashing the original, insulting fans, and dragging her movie through a wave of controversy. You know it's bad when the producer has to personally fly out just to have a one-on-one about your actions. Even Spielberg reportedly raised an eyebrow at how off the rails it had gotten. Things were so out of hand Rachel had to make an apology post, which was so out of character for her it might as well have had Mickey Mouse's signature at the bottom, but fans weren't buying it and the damage was done. Now, of course, actions have consequences, so it seemed like Hollywood started ghosting Rachel. She was allegedly set to voice a character in Toy Story 5, cut, rumored to star in Pirates of the Caribbean Gone horror trilogy with Plumhouse. Well, not anymore, because it seems that nobody wants to work with someone who brings more drama than box office receipts. But after the flop, Rachel posted how Snow White was life-changing and emotional for her, but between the empty theater posts, awkward online silence about Gal Gadot, and endless damage control, the meltdown was basically complete. The film is now used as a punchline for Disney's identity crisis, and Rachel Zegler, who once seemed destined for stardom, has become a walking example of how fast Hollywood can turn on you when you mix ego politics and a $370 million fairy tale. It's Hollywood, baby. So from picking fights with fans to creating co-star tension and watching her own movie in an empty theater, she didn't just have a rough press tour, she spiraled into a full-blown public disaster, because right now Rachel is the lead in a film that's been buried under memes, fan backlash, and studio regrets. So let me know in the comments, is this the end of Rachel Zegler, or does she have a shot at redeeming herself after this royal disaster? But until next time, remember, a fairy tale ending doesn't always come with a happily ever after, especially if you're Rachel Zegler. Peace.